will answer only Frank and Haji Ansari. The answer talks about the collective memory of us about the history of Sabah. PBS time, I had big problems, and in the private discussions with Piring, with Bala Tompok, Hurup doesn't listen. Tompok, Piring, at times Simon Luping. In some of those smaller discussions, I kept highlighting that PBS must overcome two issues. One, the perception of being anti-Islam. That allows Kuala Lumpur to play the politics of race and religion against the PBS State Government. That was a very serious issue. Second was that there's a perception that PBS was preparing a separation of Malaysia, from Malaysia, secession from Malaysia. And all this separation from Malaysia is not motivated by nationalism or the livelihood of the people in Sabah, but by an ultimate contest between a non-Muslim state government versus a Muslim federal government. So that was a very serious dilemma that PBS could not resolve. I have not spoken on this openly to a strange audience, but in our internal discussions, I tell our people why PBS failed. Because today people in Star ask me, people ask me why SAB can do it if PBS cannot. I said PBS has a big problem that sometimes unintentional cancellation of scholarships. In 1985, 86, a lot of them happen to be Muslims. Halfway the students in UK are called back. Some ministers use government premises, with due respect, they use government premises, government rest house, and they eat pork in the government premises, which the servants of the rest house are Muslims, and they have to clean up after the minister. And I argue with those ministers. If you choose to have certain diet, you go somewhere else. Oh, this is Sabah. Sabah belongs to everybody. I am also Sabah government. I am entitled to be. I want to eat in the government rest house. You see? And of course, posting of civil servants, promotions, all these things. That therefore allows Sabah to fall into the UMNO trap that this government is anti-Islam. And therefore, when UMNO came in, USNO happily made way. And even though Tun Mustafa joined PBS, the Malays did not follow Tun Mustafa. That was a very serious problem. The second problem was the idea that PBS state government was taking Sabah out of Malaysia. What was the consequence? The consequence was PBS state government was not just fighting UMNO. It was fighting the whole Malaysia. The National Security Council, the intelligence services, the Malaysian International Network, everywhere were mobilized against PBS. Whereas we were not even sure whether that was what PBS was fighting for, the separation of Malaysia. Or are we trying to get a better Sabah in Malaysia? Now, IDS role, Dr. Jeffrey been there, I call him a nationalist, he's very consistent on 20 points. Whichever party he joins is always 20 points. Okay? Give him credit. Give credit to Dr. Jeffrey. Doesn't matter which party he is. He's always 20 points. His party should be party 20 points. Okay? Give him credit to that. So ideas other than I think most of the work was actually socio-economic, poverty eradication program. There were a lot of other good things done by IDS. Non-political. It's a think tank. Because those days before IDS, nobody does the thinking. There are a lot of civil servants running around doing the daily work. But you don't have a group of consultants who sit down and plan and think and research. So IDS was good. But then, of course, they also have papers on 20 point and economy, which at that time was very sensitive. Don't forget, at that time, Dr. Mahathir, Prime Minister, wallop 9 Sultan. Okay? Those days, You know? After what the Sultan did here and there, the golf caddy and all this, He passed a law, he almost created a constitutional crisis, and this is UMNO tackling 9 sultans, including the Agong, and he won. This was what Sabah was up against. PBS could not read the situation, and internally in Sabah, PBS State Government at the time was seen to be very anti-Melayu, anti-Islam. Separation of Sabah from Malaysia is nothing to do with the welfare of Sabah, but more a contest between a non-Muslim Sabah versus a Muslim Malaysia. That cannot succeed. Which, as I said, in today's scenario, that must change. Those mistakes must not be repeated by any Sabahan or Sabah political party. Doesn't matter SABP or whoever. In respect of my 2 years, as I said, it's still the same Dr. Mahathir. Okay? Still the same Dr. Mahathir. And with the history of PBS, at the time UMNO just came in, the polarization in Sabah. The voting pattern was so clear-cut. So the polarization around race and religion was so serious that there was no way that we can achieve a consensus. It's about divide and rule. Divide and rule. So our role at that time was to bring Sabah back to the national mainstream of development. That was 1994, to bring Sabah back to the national mainstream of development. And at that time, of course, you always get encouraging federalism. You know, they're always creeping federalism. They're always knocking at the door, trying to bust their way in. I will give a few good examples. IWK is fair already in West Malaysia, in the water consortium. You know, they kept knocking at the door. I happened to be a local government minister, and I said no. Under the constitution, local government is state. IWK might be approved by the federal. IWK was approved by federal cabinet for civil services in all local authorities in Malaysia, but it does not apply to Sabah. It didn't come in. MTIB. This is a serious problem. In your renegotiation on the concurrent list, international trade must go back to Sabah. Why? Trade sanctions. Federal government banned the export of round logs by Sabah using MTIB. It will be in future if federal government ban the export of CPO from Sabah. Carry that. So we managed to revoke that ban. Revoke that ban. Of course, gaming, we managed to make our stand. Of course, in respect of the overall political autonomy for Sabah, we think about it in the 1980s and 90s, the environment was entirely different. Not only, I repeat it now, maybe the first time you listen to me, the window of opportunity for Sabah came on March 2008. Now, Putrajaya needs Sabah. That's why, and that's how, that's when we can renegotiate a new deal. Firing's misconceived fight with federal was perhaps other people in PBS, race, religion, separation from Malaysia. But even Tun Mustafa, the only reason why Tun Mustafa was toppled was nothing to do with how he runs Kaabah. It was only because Tun Mustafa is the only chief minister who refused to sign the petroleum agreement. Tunku Razali took $500,000 to pay Berjaya. You know, but Sabah was so happy. The Berjaya federal government happy Sabah to topple USNO. The motivation is not noble. The motivation to topple USNO, put in a Berjaya government was not noble, although the effects was felt to be good. Many years later that we realized, within 2 weeks of changing government and the aircraft, the agreement was signed in a hurry. You know? So if you look at the situation whereby not only Sabah have changed, this kind of seminar in the old days would never happen. Now there's a new awareness, new consciousness. And finally, seminar. In the old days, Malaysia have always been voting Barisan Nasional. Only Sabah voted against Barisan Nasional. I want to make it clear, YB, Speaker from West Malaysia, Don't talk like now West Malaysia, Malaya again advance ahead of us. Now we must follow the tsunami. The tsunami happened here many times. 1990, Ansari. Sabah, PBS State Government withdraw from BN. Tunggu tadi, 46. What happened? Even Penang water Malaysia national. Yeah? The only survivor is Ning Ajis. You know, the only survivor is Ning Ajis. Huh? Sabah lost, everybody lost. State government of Sabah in 1990 took the step to withdraw from BN. Okay? The rest is history.
Thank you.
Did the rest of West Malaysia follow? No. Now you tell us we should follow. Hey.